talk. We're ready, I think. Okay, we're ready for questions.
I had a question when you were talking about internal versus external perceptions. I just wanted to know, do you find that there are many people who don't understand the concepts that we are viewed internally and externally? Like it's not, when people see you, they don't see all of you. Do you find that a lot of people don't understand that concept?
I think everybody understands that there are stereotypes, right? I think sometimes people, that's why you have microaggressions and people not understanding their implicit biases. You know, we live in a world where there's a such thing as history, which we can't erase. You know what I mean? Like I always talk to my students about external inequalities as like brownie mix. You know, once you make the brownie mix with your eggs and your vegetable oil and whatever else you put in it, and you put it in the oven and you bake it, you can't ask somebody for the raw egg back. You know, right. Once history happens, it's here. And so what we have to do is we have to begin to talk to people about those external features that are being disrespected. You know, I think once people understand, you know, what disrespect is, then we can move forward. But I think that's a big part of it, understanding that there is a relationship between history, right, and definitions that are created, and then who I want to be as an individual. And I think that's why we run into challenges with our gender identity perspectives and language, because people want to identify people by labels and normative definitions that are historical, instead of allowing people to have an individual identity that exists separate from that external identity.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Anybody else want to add to that?
I'll add a little to that. You know, to me, that internal external thing also, it connects to this idea of identity characteristics versus lived experience. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I see people trying to go about diversity and inclusion by saying, I need to learn about these people's identity versus how do I get people's lived experience into the class or to the place. And so I think that internal lived experience is what we need to do more of, because I feel like a lot of people try to go about it through, well, you're Black, so that means this, you know?
Well, I see it kind of like it's the whole judging a book by its cover. You need to learn the internals about the individual, instead of just saying, hey, I see what you look like, and basing my opinion on you about that. Does that make sense? Because I think that a lot of people see others and they make a judgment based on what they look like on the outside, or how they're dressed, or whether or not, well, I'm a elementary school teacher, so whether or not you're wearing the right shoes or the right clothes and things like that. And they don't want, especially in middle elementary or higher elementary, so 4th and 5th grade, I find that a lot of my girls get to the point where, oh, you aren't dressing, or you don't have the same things that I do. I don't even want to get to know you because of what I see on the outside. Does that make sense? Okay, sorry.
That's okay. Perfect. Emily, Brother Jamil, do you want to add anything?
It's interesting. It's interesting. Lived experience as opposed to a collective identity. There's a slippery slope that we have to be very careful not to slide down. What I mean by that, and some of you may remember, your grandmother would tell you, and certainly my mom and other elders would tell us when we were experiencing the first forays outside of segregation in the urban North, in Buffalo. I'm sure it was like this, you know, and sure it was like this in, you know, in other cities where I grew up in the Rust Belt as well, there in Cincinnati, Ohio. And when we began to venture outside the walls of segregation, my grandmother and my mother would tell us, my father, they would say, be careful, you're going to make it difficult on the next one to come behind you. Because we were being judged as a lump, and our individuality was not considered at all. I agree 1000%. We have to consider the individual lived experiences of people. People are organic, they're real. But one of the greatest dangers that grew up out of the part of integration which destroyed Black institutions and Black traditions and Black power for ourselves to determine for ourselves was the worst byproduct of that was excessive individuality, where individuals began to define themselves without an understanding of their connection to the community from which they come. Be connected, but don't be limited and confined. Connection without confinement is the key, I think, to us having a healthy balance, as you put forward before us earlier, Dr. Howard Bostic, the idea or the concept of balance as a condition of fierceness. So those are the ideas that were in my mind.
I just wanted to add, I kind of threw it in the chat too. Some of us, just based on our shell, if we're using Dr. Howard Bostic's shell model, because of our shell, carry more privilege just in a face-to-face setting. It is a privilege as part of your shell to assume that people see all of you. And I think that's something that particularly, I'll say some people like me who are not of color, right? I'm white. Whiteness carries that, where it is a privilege to assume that you are seen. That is something that you need to work to identify. You need to work to make sure that you're not bringing that privilege and that assumption with you into the classroom, into these conversations, into your collaborations. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much, everybody. There was a question in the chat, and this question was, what are some examples of growing emotional capital? And just to be clear, emotional capital is your ability to have a group of people around you who are emotionally intelligent. So I'm going to assume that this question is, how do you grow emotional intelligence among the people who are around you? So how do you help people to be more empathetic? So how do we do that, team? How do we help the people around us to show empathy?
I'll chime in a little bit. I think one key component for that is to first start with, and I talked about this a little bit in the session, self-love, and to have an understanding of self. Because before you can reach out and show empathy to others, you first have to understand who you are and what your flaws are, as many of us have echoed tonight, and have an understanding and a love and appreciation of self. If you know how to love yourself, then that love for others is going to flow out of you. And recognizing what your blinders are and having people in your circle who can point your blinders out to you without you being offended and taking offense, and who can be honest with you to say, you might want to assess yourself a little bit more in depth in that area. I'm sensing some bad vibes coming from you in that region, and tell you to recheck yourself, so that when you approach it, with the people that it impacts, you can be more sensible to their situation and to their experience. So I think it starts with real good self-assessment first. And then, like she said, having people around you that can be honest and transparent with you about the things that you're struggling with, and be okay with somebody telling you you're struggling, but it's okay to grow in that area so that you can develop more emotional intelligence, and be open. Take those walls down. Like, it's not going to be an easy conversation, right? Like, us understanding more about people is not an easy thing. Sometimes it asks us to deal with hurts that we've had from other groups. It asks us to deal with things that we may be ignorant about. And a lot of times in academia, we don't like to admit that we're ignorant about things. So being willing and open to be uncomfortable, I also think, is a huge part of that.
Thank you, Nadir. Thank you. Anybody else want to add anything? Oh, thank you, Dr. Miller.
Yeah, I'll just add, it's so important that we have a culture of vulnerability. And we have to even there, as you said, we have to start with ourselves. We have to be willing to be vulnerable instead of defensive. And that will normalize that we can make mistakes and we can take risk together, and we can be accountable without having a culture of shame to make people change. And I think that's so important.
I love that. Vulnerable instead of being defensive. Maybe we need to say that to ourselves, like, I'm gonna make an effort to be vulnerable rather than be defensive. Be vulnerable rather than, because that's so difficult, because when someone hurts you, when someone insults you, sometimes it's our go-to to get them back, instead of going right to that point and working back toward the solution and the real reason why you're doing whatever it is that you need to do. And I think that goes back to, I spoke with a group of youth before this. I did a talk with a group of youth, and we talked about how important it was to understand that it's not about you. That, as a fierce leader, in your goal to create unity, in your goal to create a better place for other people, in approaching empathy, that in fact it's not about you. So when someone does something hostile, that you don't need to be defensive, that you can be vulnerable, and understand that at the end of the day, it wasn't about you, it was about the solution. It was about creating a better space for the other people who will interact with this individual in the future. And that's difficult, but it's important. Thank you. Does anybody else have any kind? What does it look like to carry your privileged shell into the classroom? What does it look like to carry your privileged shell into the classroom? Monica, is that question for Emily, or is that question for all of us? Because I know that I'm privileged because of my income, and I know that I'm privileged because of my college degree. I may not be privileged because of my race or my gender, but I know I have privileges that I bring into the space. Is that for everybody, Monica? Or were you just referring to what Emily said? Monica, you're on mute. Is she?
As she put in the comment, it was addressed to me.
Was it to you? Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I can start, and then I think everybody else probably has more to say about it. But I would say it's microaggressions. What are the norms that you've set in your classroom? What are the topics that you all discuss? What are the mannerisms that are allowed or not allowed, encouraged or not encouraged? What are the ways that the students interact with each other and with you? And how do you support or encourage that? What are the behaviors that you allow or don't allow in your classroom? And how did you arrive at that? What are your teaching methods? So how do you engage with your students on any kind of a topic? I would say that those things have an inherent ability to carry privilege or microaggressions that are blind spots, just relating into what Jamil had talked about. So that's where I would start.
Anyone else want to tackle this, or should we move to? We've got about 8 more minutes, and I see a couple more questions in the chat. There's a question from Victor. 2 questions. What's the relationship or difference between having a set of civility principles and buying into some type of contract to fit into a community or a group? And what can fierce leaders do when they stumble on group inertia or inaction? So I guess we can take the first question about civility principles, or how you fit in, trying to fit in with somebody. Do you all understand what he's talking about there? Do I need to break anything down? So I think this is talking about here the difference between having your own principles or trying to fit in with a group of people. What's the difference? So I think I can say that there's some different civility principles when I go home to Buffalo, when I'm hanging out with my family, then there may be on the college campus, there may be some different ways that people handle things or deal with things. And I think you have to understand your environment. You have to always be mindful and understand your environment. So like, for example, if I walk into a classroom, that classroom is going to have a certain energy because of the audience and who's in that classroom and how the tables are set up in the classroom and the energy that exists in that particular classroom. I have to think about the audience and I have to think about where I am. I have to think about the history of the environment, the location, the geography. I have to look at, as a fierce leader, I have to look at everything that is going on, and I have to be constantly aware of the audience and the space, not just the people, but also the location where I am and what the rules are in that space. I had to do once a lecture at Georgia College, and Georgia College, it was a liberal arts university, but the history of Georgia and the history of West Virginia are different, and the history of New York State, where I'm from, it's very different. And so when they asked me to talk, they said, well, what are you going to talk about? Because we don't know if our people are going to be ready. We don't know if they're going to be ready for what it is that you have to say. And so I had to have a conversation with them to make sure that the platform that I had was adequate or ready or whatever for whatever I needed to say. So there are going to be different civility principles and different rules in different places that you encounter. So as a leader, you need to be aware of where you are and how ready they are for certain things that you're going to ask of people. You know, sometimes it's like, sometimes you have a race or whatever, and some people you get ready to, they don't know what the baton is. You know, you can't pass the baton if they don't know what the baton is or what you're going to do with the baton. Or if they got broken legs, you can't expect them to run. So you got to kind of work with people where they are and use that emotional intelligence or whatever to try to get people to where you all can be together. And you got to be patient with that. That's adaptive change too. So I hope I answered your question. Maybe. Anybody else want to help with that? Or crickets?
No, I agree. It made me think about when I was in the classroom with sixth graders, and there are lots of principles that you want to teach to students, but you also have to recognize the homes and the situations that they may come from and the experiences that are lived. So I may be trying to teach civility to my students, and we might be cutting out an activity, and I might have red and blue scissors. And I taught in an area where red and blue were the colors of the gangs of the students. And so they couldn't even hear what I was saying because they were focused on antagonizing each other about which color scissors that they have. And it's like thinking about your audience, backtracking and say, you know what, let's just cut scissors out. We're not going to use scissors or anything with those colors, and let me approach it from a different way. I know that's a very basic example, but I think it's the same thing. Like, you're not changing what you're trying to teach. You're just thinking about the methodology, or differentiating, for those of you that probably hear that term all that time, so that you can get the message out to the people that you're trying to get it to or get the point across. So just editing the method that you utilize, but you're not changing the basis of what the civility principle is. It's just thinking about who your audience is and how it's best going to be suited for that audience. So that it made me think about that example. I don't know if that's quite the same thing, but it made me think about that example.
All right. Is it okay if we just go to the last question, since we don't have a lot of time left? And that was, what happens when you run into people that won't do nothing? When there's inaction, what do you do when you're just with a group of people and they just don't want to do anything? What do?
This is the first time in my life, Dr. Bostic, I'm going to quote a man I've never quoted before, but I'm going to quote him because it's applicable here. President George W. Bush once said of his activity in the Middle East that he was forming a coalition of the willing. Coalition of the willing. When people don't want to do nothing, you can't make them want to do nothing. You have to understand that even the ferocity of your leadership is applicable for those who submit to that leadership, those interactions, those exchanges, that balance, that accountability, that vulnerability, and all the principles that we put forward this evening. If you're going to have a team, you have to have folks who want to be on the team. Now, if you got folks who are not doing anything, I think it goes back to the question that we received earlier. What about a fossilized person? A person who's just negative and doesn't want to do anything? That person cannot be on your team. You said earlier, when a person is negative, bye, you dismiss them. And inactivity and inertia and lack of involvement and connection is a form of negativity. It's a choice that a person makes to negate what you're doing by their failure to engage it. So I think we have to recognize that that is a reality and act accordingly.
I'm going to add to that although I do sometimes say bye, I do try to give it just one more shot. So sometimes I do try to find something that we have in common, and I'll try that one last thing. I'll give it one last shot, to see if I can pull them in. But then after that, I got to give the energy to the people who want to do, But I am mindful of the people who want to do, because sometimes we could push the people who want to do just too much, And so we do have to periodically go back to the unwilling and then try again. But I don't put all my energy into the unwilling. But I do, I do go back periodically and say, okay, let me just give this one more chance here, and I see what happens. You just see what happens. But I give 85% of my energy or more to the people who are willing, people who are willing.
True. I'll agree with that. And like the old man said, I'm happier to see a bad one go than I am to see a good one come. Hallelujah.
I'm just going to share my screen because I have a message from the team. We're so thankful to have you here today. This leadership training was a partnership. The people who are presenting here are wonderful people, people that are dear to me. I'm so grateful for them for sharing their time and energy. And I'm also so grateful to you for being here. I hope these competencies were, gathered from this experience. I hope you learned something about positive social change, being conscious about yourself, something about citizenship and that type of consciousness, creating a common purpose, contending sometimes with civility when you can, being a little bit more committed and congruent, and collaboration as well. And I really hope that you see yourself as a fierce leader. And I look forward to your partnerships with Shepherd University in the future. And if you're interested in enrolling in the continuing education course for this, that involves this information, everything that we've done is on video. So it's not too late for you to go back and engage and to have this opportunity. It's not too late. Just send me an email and we can make sure that you have an opportunity to use this for your, professional development, because I know that it's difficult sometimes to find things to do like this that, during this time, especially during COVID time. So anyway, we're so grateful. It's 8:01, so we have to go. I value your time. Your time is important to me. So thank you. Pour your comments in the chat. I'll be here for a few minutes if you want to stick around and say anything. Thank you so much, Dr. Leonard, Brother Muhammad, Emily, and Kira. Thank you so much. You all were amazing. So amazing. Thank you. Thank you. You all have a wonderful night. If you need anything from me, you can email me. Email me if you need me.
My people, I see some of you still here. Blog.
Thank you so much. Good night,
Guys.
everyone.
Thank you.
If you all need
I'm
to
gonna
check in
take
with
us-
me, I'll be around. Email me.
I'm
We'll
gonna
set up a
take us
time to
out
speak.
the spotlight.
Okay.
I'm gonna remove the spotlight so that we have a gallery view if anybody's still left here. Thank you so much, y'all.
Doctor, I just want to ask, I am doing this for credits also. And I know you mentioned during our meeting the other day that there would be a question or a response thing that we would have to fill out. Will that be posted in Sakai later?
So in Sakai right now, in the assignment link, everything is in there.
Okay. Okay.
So did you get in there? If you go to this.
I'm sorry. I was able to get in there, but I didn't, I saw where you posted the, like all of the meetings and everything, the links to that. Is it within all of that information?
Look on the side, on the
Okay.
side of, like on the side, look to see if you have an arrow that's pushed all the way this way so that there's a menu on the side.
Okay.
And when you click the different things on the menu, you'll see, some resources with links to the videos, and you'll see the assignment link. And what I did was, it's one assignment, but I broke it up into different submission parts so that you can kind of take your time and focus on each piece so it doesn't feel overwhelming. And you just turn those in as time permits.
Okay.
And if you need more time, just let us know.
All right. Thank you so much.
Because things are a little nuts sometimes right now. So if you need a little bit more time, it's okay. Just let us know.
So I think my question was similar to hers. I'm not familiar with the program that you're talking about, but I do understand that I have to submit my assignments there. This is the first class I've taken with the
Sakai.
I'm sorry, I have feedback. It's the first class I've ever taken. You said, what's it called?
Sakai.
Sakai.
The learning management.
Okay. And will you be so you're the instructor for that course that will be checking?
Annie is an instructor and I'm an instructor. So there are right now 56 students enrolled, and she's got half of them and I got half of them. So I'm not sure if you're in her class or in my class, but send me an email in the morning and either one of us can make sure that you get in, and we can walk you through and show you how to use it. You don't have to be on your own with it. If you need to know how to use it, we can just call you and we can look at it together.
So I'll probably be able to navigate that. I just wanted to make sure if I had any questions regarding the particular assignment, who to reach out to. So it will be you or Annie.
It don't matter, whichever one. Yeah, if she's your instructor, you can reach out to her. But if you have a question, you just send me a message. You can.
Great. Okay.
Either of us can answer questions. It's okay.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. All right, yeah, I'm going to talk to the speakers for a second. So thank you everyone for logging in today. We're going to have the speakers left here.
Hi.
Hi, Ree. How you doing?
I'll call you afterwards, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, then.
So,
Thank you so much.
What'd y'all think? How did it go?
I enjoyed it. I just felt like I rushed through content, and I hope they don't think I was too basic.
Oh, I think your presentation was wonderful.
Thank you, Dr.
It was wonderful.
Yours
Everybody
well.
is.
I'm sorry I didn't see the other two, but they're videoed, right? So we can go back and see. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I can't
So,
wait to
Sister-
watch the others.
Yeah, Sister Nadira, I just want to tell you, we had to be basic. We were in a time constraint, but I think basic was the platform. That's what we're supposed to do. Give some basic talking points and then start a discussion that's going to be ongoing. That's what I think made it so powerful. It wasn't an attempt to be exhaustive. It was an attempt to be suggestive. And I think we succeeded in that.
Especially, I think, Nadira, you started off with such a, I loved your spoken word at the beginning. Like, I'm such a sucker for them. And I just thought yours was very powerful. And that got me hooked immediately.
Thank you.
I love the incorporation of the music, the personalities, the energy, just the diversity also of our attitudes and our positions. You know what I mean? Like just who we all are as individuals and how that played out in the presentations, I think. And the topics, I think, were perfect for each person who presented them, because it seemed like the topics were so dear to what you do, you know, and what you bring to the table. So I thought you all did. I'm grateful, blessed, all of the above. Sorry about that stupid document with the wrong link. I was so pissed that I don't even know how. I was creating the document and the links from the last workshop were on this stupid AB thing. I was so mad at that. So
you were right on time with the email, because I'm like,
still, I was like, what? And he was like, this ain't the right link. I was like, no.
Quick question. What was the music? Are there music references that we need to write down? Like, should we be listening to certain pieces of music that can be found or researched? Like what can I do? I didn't hear the presentation about the music.
You gotta wait for the video. You gotta wait for Hakim's video. I can't give it away.
Okay.
I mean, I can tell you what the artist was Jamila Woods, and she has her most recent album is called Legacy, where she connects her identity to famous people like James Baldwin and Eartha Kitt. And I referenced this song about Eartha Kitt in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds marvelous.
Yeah.
Marvelous.
Thank you so much to you and your whole team for putting this together. This was
great.
amazing.
Yes.
I know it's a lot of work goes into that. So thank you. And I hope you're able to rejuvenate and get some rest and be restored.
I have no idea. That second vaccine, this is something.
Your arm about to fall off?
Did you? No, like I got the flu or something. Like, I don't know if y'all can see me sweating on here, but like, I'm sure. I was sitting here struggling. I hope it didn't look like it.
Tomorrow. It's usually one day, and then you get better.
It's the second day.
Better in the morning.
Thank you again. I've got to log off, y'all, and go get the babies. So
okay, go ahead. I gotta cook dinner. My family is waiting for dinner to start at 8 o'clock. They're gonna get mad.
The babies. And it's Ramadan too. Brother got to go get some bean pie. It's Ramadan. You know what I mean?
Yes. Happy fasting. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you again, everybody. I hope we could do something else in the future.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
We would love to.
Yeah.
Okay, and Hakeem, we got a job to do. We got some community stuff to do.
That sounds good to me.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Baya. Enjoy your evening. Thank you again so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica.
Peace.
Okay.
Peace.
All right, bye.